Melissa, Jonathan, Bob, and all of the Fitzmaurice family. I am so sorry for the loss of this great, great man, Dan Fitzmaurice. So, I said to the Duchess, let's sell the chateau and move to America. Sweet hour. Ave Maria, gee, it's good to see you. C'est la vie and the fleur-de-lis. Oh my golly day. These and many other Danisms are the signature of a truly one-of-a-kind, larger-than-life individual that touched us all and always will. Why I am here this morning giving this eulogy is itself a classic Dan. My parents and I were at dinner with Dan and Maria at Chuck's Steakhouse in January of 2009, sitting right next to the salad bar because Dan liked to people watch. Dan and Marie's dear friend, Paul McPherson, had recently passed away, and Dan mentioned that Paul was going to give his eulogy, and now he didn't know who would. So he turned to me and said, I need a eulogist. So he looked at me and said, hey, sport, I want you to give my eulogy and make it funny. Really? All right, Dan, I'll do it. And if this real estate thing doesn't work out, I can always become a professional eulogist. I have known Dan all my life because of my mother. Dan was my mother's first friend. They met almost 80 years ago and remained such close friends all these years. How they met is also a classic Dan moment. My parents were moving into their home here in Stamford on Cold Spring Road, and who walks up to the front door to check out what was going on? Dan. My grandmother asked, who are you? I'm Dan Fitzmaurice. How did you get here? I walked. I just live up there on Stillwater Road. Well, Mom and my Uncle Jerry Connell had made their first and what would be the longest lasting friendship. As a result, I have known Dan for 50 years. To know Dan is to have the amazing opportunity to hear his stories, experiences, unique sayings, humor, jokes. I could go on all day about his stories, but just hearing him tell about what happened when he was in and out of some 14 private schools when growing up in California was priceless. There was one school which would expel you after getting 10 demerits. Dan acquired the 10 in 2 weeks. Things like walking on the grass instead of the path, not wearing his beanie cap the right way, or the school where Dan's roommate put a snake in his bed one night, and it ended up in his pajama pants. Dan wasn't very happy about this, and it was a very bad decision indeed for that roommate, for the other roommate had to pry Dan off the kid that did this. Dan told me, he said, I never wore pajamas to bed again. Then there were the antics, most of which Dan initiated with my mom and the kids from Cold Spring Road. For example, one day he decided to open the gate at the Conshade Farm and let all the cows out and wander around the entire neighborhood. Or the pocketbook game where they would put a pocketbook in the middle of Stillwater Road with a string tied to it. And when a car would stop by to pick it up, they'd jerk it away. Then the more mischievous version of this was putting cow manure in the bag, watching to see the reaction of the person thinking they just stumbled across a pocketbook full of money. Throwing crab apples from up on Knobloch Hill at cars or into a convertible for extra points. Or of course, when Dan would place a paper bag full of cow manure on the front step of the house, light it on fire, ring the bell, only to watch the homeowners stomping away to extinguish Dan's clever gag. Oh, and one year he happened to pluck all the springtime buds off the rhododendrons in the entire neighborhood, including the ones at my grandparents' house. I have always been fascinated with Dan's sayings. They were truly unique to Dan. Again, we know, so I said to the Duchess and the Sweet Hour. I think those were his favorites. But how about sweet vision of loveliness, when he would call to Marie, which often was abbreviated to just sweet vision. Hearing these when you were 6 or 7 years old would seem foreign at first, then familiar, but now they are forever. A couple of Dan's sayings that were complimentary of something are among my favorites. My parents used to get new furniture in their den what seemed like every couple of years. This was something that fascinated Dan. He would show up and see the new furniture and say, Marie, they have more new furniture. You spend money like a drunken sailor, Dan would bark to my father. But if he liked whatever it was, he would then hear, isn't this elegant? Or the more informal, isn't this the cat's ass? Well, there were many other things that Dan would just say or recite, things that I've memorized over time, like bright night in the middle of the day, two dead men got up to play, back to back they faced each other, drew their swords, and shot each other to death. Policemen heard the noise and came to arrest those two dead boys. I won't tell the end. Of course, how many people here have heard Dan tell a great joke? I know quite a few of them, but this isn't exactly the best setting to share most of them. I happened to win a best joke contest at a work event once by telling one of Dan's amazing jokes. Knowing Dan my whole life, we have spent a lot of time together. Dan and Marie were there for my first communion, my confirmation, my graduation from high school, from college, and many, many birthdays. Dan and Marie are my family. We went on vacation together a lot growing up, and oh, what fun. We usually go in Dan and Marie's Chevy Caprice Classic State Wagon. Dan driving, my father up front, hopefully not navigating. Marie and my mom in the back seat, and Paul and I in the way back, as we used to call it in those days. This isn't like these leather-lined Lear jets with flat-screen TVs and personal earphones that these kids are in today. This was a real station wagon. Paul and I were there in the way back with all the luggage, and there was always one suitcase in between us, which would allow us to play with the Lego sets that Marie would give us each to keep us quiet, hopefully, on the trip. Oh, and the car was, of course, filled with smoke from the four of them smoking, always with the window thrown. This was really travel. One of the great trips I remember, which resulted in a very animated Dan, was our trip up to the McLaughlin's veal farm in Vermont. Long story short, we went on a tour of the young calves, all lined up in their stalls in the barn. The highlight of the trip or tour was that the calves would suck on your hand if you would let them. Well, Dan would not let them. I could see he was looking rather pale as the tour progressed. The smell inside that barn might have been a big part of it. Let's just say this place wasn't as elegant. It finally was time to leave the barn and adjourn for lunch up at the house. And as we left the barn, there outside the side door was a dead calf, legs up in the air. All I remember hearing was, "Marie, sweet out!" I'll leave it with the sight of that calf must have bothered Dan's stomach because he ran around the corner and I think he might have missed lunch that day. There were many great trips down to Lavallette, New Jersey to go to the beach. We used to stay at a beachfront place called the Waldorf, not to be confused with that elegant Park Avenue establishment in New York City. Well, we checked in and Dan took a little afternoon nap and discovered there was sand in the bed, clearly from a previous guest. Well, he wasn't too pleased, and I happened to go with him when he stormed off to the front desk to complain about the bedding. He asked the lady at the front desk, "How many nights do I have to stay in this place before you change the sheets?" The lady very calmly said, "Oh, we usually change them once a week." And he said, "Sweet!" One last experience on our boat. We happened to own a boat called the Sound Mates with Dan and Marie, and we had great times indeed. Well, one Saturday we went over to Northport for dinner with Dan and Marie and Paul and my parents and Dan's sister, Mary Ann. We had a great dinner, and it was dark as we cast off in the Northport Pier. We headed out into the Sound, and a large passing yacht had kicked up a rather sizable wake in front of us ahead. Riding up in the bow were both Dan and Sister Mary Ann. Well, needless to say, with the two of them up forward, we were riding a little low in the water. We took a wake right over the bow, and our bow light went out. Dan was so nervous. It was dark. We were now without running lights. It was a very hazy night with poor visibility, so he stayed up forward, clutching a flashlight all the way across the Sound. As we approached the other side, we saw a boat in the distance, and Dan said, "Let's ask those people where we are," like we had arrived on another planet. So Dan said, "Where is this place?" And the old fisherman said, "Stamford." And Dan said, "I'm getting off right here and swimming to shore." As we were literally around the corner from Cove Island, he, with some prodding, agreed to stay on board. But he clutched that flashlight all the way back to Cove Island. I learned so much from Dan over these many years, so much which means a lot to me. Dan had impeccable table manners. He taught me a thing or two about sitting at the table, which utensils to use first, how to position your fork and knife on the plate when you finished your meal. He taught me to always keep a $50 bill folded and tucked away in my wallet. So when you thought you might have just run out of money, there's that backup 50. When I would get frantic about the stock market going down, he would say, "Well, don't worry about it, it's just on paper. Always have some spare cash around." One of the fun and more enduring things that he taught me was the napkin trick. I think I was about 7 when I first talked. You fold a napkin in such a way, once you pull it open, always at the count of 1, 2, 3, it becomes a bra. A crowd favorite for sure, and I have in recent years taught this to lots of people, in particular my friends' children, and always, always give credit to Dan. I just shared with them recently how my cousin's 2 sons had learned this great skill and were already teaching their friends, how he loved hearing this. But it was Dan that taught us all. It cannot go without saying that Dan was such a kind, big-hearted, warm, and generous man. You would most certainly know you would have been greeted when seeing Dan or walking into his home. Perhaps it was the familiar, well, how do, or one of my favorites, well, if it isn't Kevin Quick of the Quick Foundation. Dan always assured you that you had been missed, that he was happy to see you and to be with you. He would light up a room and was the life of the party. How Dan loved his friends and to entertain them. The parties at Dan and Marie's were always fun. From Sunday night hamburgers in their kitchen, to summer cookouts with the Hardimans, Cronins, and the Connells, the big New Year's Day open house party, and many formal dinners in their dining room, beautifully set with china and stew-bent glasses. Of course, there were also a lot of nights out to restaurants as guests of Dan and Marie, always great times. Dan was so good and so kind to all of his many friends and family, and certainly to me and my family. I remember the day my grandfather died. The first one at the door was Dan. The same thing when my grandmother died, and when my father died. What a truly great friend. He gave of himself in so many ways as well, from a phone call just to see how things were going, volunteering in the soup kitchen, helping out here at St. Leo's, and of course his great financial generosity to so many. This is a sad day for sure. Dan was like another father to me, but I am so grateful for having had the privilege and pleasure of knowing Dan. He was indisputably one of a kind, and will surely be missed. There will never be another Dan. That said, he has touched all of us here today in so many ways that he will always be with us and live on forever as we share our stories about him, perhaps a joke, a Danism, or watch that next beaming face first learn the napkin trick. Thoughts of Dan will always make me smile, and I know I will never forget all that he taught me, which is why I can say, so I said to the Duchess, oh, what a sweet hour it was.
Oh, goodness.